like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it's sink or swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it's sink or swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in. Welcome to the shrimp tank. Want to put it all together, this is big things. Doing big things, chasing big dreams. Yeah, it's all real, this life's all that it seems. All the chicks scream, all the dudes yell. This is just what I do and I do it well. With the flow fresher than the new shoe smell. Going through hell, but homie keep going. You know the saying, you can reap what you sow in. So I don't chase girls, I just chase dreams. Play the same game, but we ain't in the same league. Running a campaign, Roadie 2016. Like a phone to die, put me in charge. I'm a general, from the front I'ma lead the charge. Like a federal, fell on my lap never. Going hard as ever, the results match the effort.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Oz Digital Studio from the Shrimp Tank down here in Boca Raton, Florida, in collaboration with the FAU Adams Center for Entrepreneurship. Of course, we are now streaming live on multiple channels. You go to the Adams Center's Facebook account, our Instagram account at Shrimp Tank Boca, or Facebook account, and of course, my LinkedIn account. So if you want to see all these amazing episodes every single week, just tune in right there. And of course, if you want to catch the older podcast, just go to shrimptankpodcast.com. And of course, watch 275 plus episodes and more to come. We have such an amazing lineup. Isn't that correct? My co-host, Kevin Cox.
Yeah, that's right. Very exciting things here at the FAU Adams Center for Entrepreneurship. Always a lot of stuff going on. I'm just returning from the United States Association of Small Business and Entrepreneurship annual conference, where I was presenting some research related to entrepreneurship through acquisition, something we're going to be offering a seminar on here at some point in the future, and another paper on developing a minimum viable product. And believe it or not, while I was up there, once again, I were able to do a bit of winning. So that minimum viable product paper won the best conceptual paper award at the conference.
Congrats.
Where was this conference?
It was in Birmingham, Alabama.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was in your paper? Why'd you win? Give us some details.
Well, it was the best paper, Jason. According to the reviewers,
You're the only one that knows how to use ChatGPT? What is it?
No. Some good ideas.
Yeah?
Of what it really takes to deliver a minimum viable product, an MVP. There's a lot of kind of talk about, like, hey, you make an MVP, right? But nobody really has detailed, like, okay, but like, which components do I need? Which ones do I not need? What might it look like in different sectors? So it's really all about that. It was one of a few papers I've written that is not terribly boring. Most of the rest are.
Before we get into our guest today, can you just explain what an MVP is? Because I learned about MVP like 3 years ago building Owl. Right. But prior to that, I really didn't have understanding of it. Like, what is the basic MVP versus a more advanced MVP?
Yeah. The bottom line is you need to be able to deliver the core value proposition, right? So what does the thing supposed to do, right? So for Owl, you need to be able to call an expert. Essentially, that is the MVP. But obviously, in order to call an expert via a smartphone, like, well, they probably need to at least like create an account and a profile so you know who they are. So like it ends up being more than just that core value proposition, but all the components should really be focused on only delivering that value proposition to see whether or not people want to use, like, enjoy, will pay for. Even if the experience isn't necessarily completely flawless and totally user-friendly, but it does deliver on whatever the promise is of the product or service.
Yeah. And for everyone listening, it could range from thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars. When I did my MVP for Owl, right, it started with wireframes. Like, what would the app look like? The onboarding experience? What would our competition look like? And when I did that, most brands, hire a team of developers, 3 developers, 10 developers, and it could cost anywhere from a few $1,000s up to $100,000 just for the pre-MVP section. And then when you get the bill to create the MVP, most apps are hundreds of thousands of dollars, unless you want to do something super basic where it has no code, and then you could just test it with a small audience. But once you do apps that have a lot of functionality, like phone calls, like Owl does, it is a few $100,000 just get the original MVP off the ground. So it's great information for everyone listening out there There's all different types of MVPs. But let's jump into our guest today. This is the podcast. We get to interview the best and brightest entrepreneurs from South Florida. Always find the do's and don'ts of running a business. Today we have Dr. Krista in the Shrimp Tank studio. She is the co-founder of Live Wellness. So share with us, Dr. Krista, what is your brand all about? Who's your partner in crime going at this new business?
Totally. Yeah. So Live Wellness was started by my husband and I a couple of years ago now. We're actually nearing our 5th year. So we're getting there. But it really focuses on wellness. Okay. So the idea is, you can go to your doctor, and if you go to your white coat medical doctor and you tell them your symptoms, generally they're going to give you something that's covered by insurance. So usually that's a pill or a procedure, right? A lot of people are not wanting that as an option for themselves, or they're not wanting to rely on medications long term. It turns out that the average medications that Americans take these days, if you're under age 60, the average is 4. If you are over age 60, the average jumps to 14 to 18 different medications. So the idea with our business is we're really trying to teach people about their bodies, how to understand what they can do naturally from lifestyle perspectives to, one, be able to prevent these chronic conditions that arise. Because again, 60% of our population has a chronic condition, 40% have 2 or more chronic conditions. So we really want to work on preventing that, but then also being able to reverse if you do end up with one of these chronic conditions, because a lot of us are not taught that we can reverse these things, right? So that's the main gist. How we do that is a lot of education. So it's kind of like going to school for your health, really focusing on nutrition, detoxification.
Kevin's getting ready over here. He loves these type of episodes. He's gonna make some jokes right at me. You can see it. It's coming.
Oh gosh, jokes at you. At least it's not at me.
Well, he usually brings what he calls he always calls it just coffee. It's a big sugar milkshake that he gets at Starbucks.
Oh, we're gonna have a great time explaining this, because there's so many questions with oat milk, almond milk.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if you could picture like a cup, but like filled with diabetes.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. And coffee's fine. You just have to drink it black. I don't know. He turns it into this mutant milkshake thing. But yeah, you're right. I am excited. I love this kind of business and this business model and health and wellness. We've had a bunch of different people in the space, but it makes so much sense to me. So tell us a little bit about the business side. We definitely understand the value proposition. That's clear. Do you work outside of insurance in conjunction with insurance? How does the business model work? That's what we talk about here in the Shrimp Tank.
Yeah. So we work outside of insurance, not necessarily by choice, but insurance really just doesn't cover what it takes to get healthy. So there's actually a quote by Medicare, and I know not everyone is on Medicare, but what Medicare does, they set precedents for all other insurance companies. So Medicare actually says, if you want to prevent disease, if you want to promote health, if you want a better quality of life, or if you want a longer life, we do not consider that medically necessary, and therefore it's not payable. Right? That's straight. You can read it on their website, out of their journal, whatever. So point being, if you really want to get healthy, if you want to get to optimal health, you have to learn how to invest in yourself. So that's a lot of the education we kind of do as well, is really learning to put yourself first, to make your health a priority, because without your health, you don't have anything. Right. So we do have a cash-based practice, and we use programs. So essentially if you get enrolled into our business, our programs, you have all of these things included. So the education, the curriculum, supplements, labs, all the visits included, health coaching calls, accountability, all of those things, because we really found that when we used to work fee for service, people would come and then we'd give them a plan, and they may or may not do the plan, and they may or may not come back in a month to follow up, right? And so we just weren't seeing results. And that was really frustrating for us as doctors, because we want people to get healthy, but life is busy, right? Things come up. There's a million things that get in the way. And so if you're just handed a plan and you don't really understand why you need to be doing it, or the ins and outs of, should you have almond milk or oat milk or whatever it should be, then it's much harder to sustain.
Can we go into a little further detail? Because
Yeah.
often business owners just say, no, this way is the right way. They wait for the credit card transactions to go through. And unfortunately, they end up failing. You realize real quick, like, we have a model that's great, but we need to tune it up a little bit. We need to get people on recurring revenue, right? Everyone knows recurring revenue businesses are a lot easier to maintain because then you have staff. You don't have to worry about how many transactions go through in December where people aren't focused on their health. Then January, all of a sudden it turns back around. They're like, wait, I gained 10 pounds. I got to do something. But dive deeper into, like, let's say I am bored, right? What happens next? And what am I going to get in the next 12 months?
Yeah, so we really go through a pretty intense interview process to make sure that you're ready for one of the programs, first of all. But if you onboard, you have a couple options in terms of payments. We make sure if you want to pay in full, we give a discount for that. 3 installments you can do. You can also do financing because we find that people sometimes need that flexibility with payment options, right? So once people decide what payment option they want to do, then, we dive in with an orientation visit. We start with what labs they're going to start with, what supplements, and then they get a whole online curriculum. So like I said, it's like going to school for your health. And then we're checking in with them every week, every 2 weeks as time goes on so that we can really hold them accountable and make sure they're getting their questions answered. There's a lot
of accountability. So every single 2 weeks you're checking in
phone
call or through a website? Or
usually it's through online Zoom. We do have an office too, but most people are doing virtually because we see people all over.
And then you said a lab, so people are having a blood test, and then it's pointing out certain metrics to you. Then how our body kind of sees things, I guess. You always see people talking about this on TikTok, of course, and they're like, your body has a deficiency in X or Y, right? And
or in Jason's case, you're like, sir, this vial's just filled with whipped cream. We can't do anything with this.
Yeah, exactly. Depending on the case, we may need blood work, but blood work doesn't cover everything, right? For example, hormones. If you test hormones in the blood, they're only going to tell you what your hormones are in your blood in that moment in time, not later in the day, not later in the month, not what they are in your tissues. So sometimes we have to do further testing like a urine test or saliva test so we can get more samples, that sort of thing. So yes, that's kind of the quantitative data side of it. But we're also tracking, how people feel. We have check-in surveys every week that people are writing down exactly what's changing, what's different, so we can keep track of that data as well.
Nice. So let's dig into the plans a little bit. Tell us, I think a good way to do that is probably give us an overview of your most popular program.
Yeah. So how our programs work is really by length, by duration. So depending on the person, the case, what's going on, right? We might have someone who's pretty healthy, but they want to just optimize things and be able to run a triathlon or whatever it may be, right? But then we have people on 18 medications who are nearing dialysis, right? So those different people are going to need very different lengths of time and accountability, et cetera. But generally, I would say, most of our clients are on around 4 months of a program. And so really what they're working on, they have to be working on the 5 pillars of health, we call them, and they have to be doing them all together. So I find that a lot of people, they'll say, oh, I'm working out and I'm eating healthy, but I'm just not totally getting where I want to be. So that's because they're not doing all of these pillars. So the pillars are nutrition, detoxification, hormone balance, energy balance, which includes sleep, stress, and movement, and then mentorship on top of that. So that's what the program includes, plus the supplements, plus the testing.
Very interesting. Yeah, I was just going to ask you what the 5 are because only like 2 came to mind. And then as soon as you started naming them, I was thinking, well, yeah, obviously. Now that kind of makes a lot of sense.
Totally.
There's still the hormone one I wouldn't have thought of, but it makes sense, of course.
Well, I think people get a little stuck on hormones because they don't really understand them. when you say hormones, people really just think reproductive hormones, but that's only a very small percentage. There's actually 300 hormones in the body, both men and women. So it's not just reproductive. There's, of course, thyroid hormones, which control your metabolism. There's adrenal hormones, which are, stress hormones. They help you wake up in the morning, help you fall asleep. Insulin is a hormone. So that thing that's, helping his blood sugar stay low when he drinks that drink, that's insulin. So that's a hormone. Vitamin D, even though it's called a vitamin, that is a hormone, right? So all these things are the signaling molecules between your cells. So if they're thrown off, they throw everything else off. So if you're just eating well and just exercising, but you're not addressing your hormones, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, makes sense.
Let's go back in history a little bit. How did you become an entrepreneur? When you were a young child, did you have this in your blood? Was it in your family? Or, you went to medical school and you said, no, I just don't like this environment. What was it? And tell us some of the pathways since you graduated from school.
Yeah, so naturopathic medical school, it's the same as conventional school in terms of length. The first 2 years are the same in terms of same sciences, pharmacology, minor surgery, all of those kind of things. The second 2 years are more focused on natural remedies, holistic things, all these things I've been talking about. But point being, when you go to medical school, there's no business education, right? You don't learn how to start a business or anything about it. But as a naturopath, you really have a lot of options. There's not a prescribed path for you. Sure, you could work in some hospitals. You could work in a private practice. You could work for a supplement company. You could work for a lab company. There's really a lot of options. So my husband and I met in medical school, and we actually were supposed to take over another practice in Hawaii. Long story short, that woman decided she didn't want to give up her practice. So we were kind of left at a place where we're like, okay, what are our options here? We decided at that point to move back to New Jersey. New Jersey really at the time only had about 10 naturopaths, which is very small compared to where we went to school in Portland, Oregon, California, Washington. There's a naturopath on every corner. So we really realized that the market was not saturated, right? There was a lot of room for us there. And the East Coast is slowly and surely becoming more naturally oriented, catching up with the West Coast. So we just really decided that it would be the best thing to really start our own practice. My husband is more of the entrepreneurial mind, his father as well. So it kind of runs in his family, I would say. So he was just kind of like, you know what, this is the best path for us. We have no idea what we're doing, but let's jump in and make it work.
Nice. Well, that's a great story. And then how did you end up down here from New Jersey?
So we had a physical brick and mortar practice in New Jersey, but of course, when COVID hit, right, everything went virtual. And so that really allowed us the ability to move wherever we wanted to go. Then
you just followed everybody else.
Yep, followed everyone else to the Sunshine State because you could be outside, you could exercise, you could stay healthy while all of this COVID craziness was happening.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. That's why one of the many reasons I stay down here. It's warm, it's sunny, it's pretty wonderful for the most part, depending on where you are. But we're glad to have you in our backyard. That's a phenomenal story and a great business.
Yeah, so let's take a quick commercial break to hear from one of our sponsors. And then when we get back, we're going to jump to our hot or not segment of the show.
Join the fastest growing community of professionals on the internet with OWL. Access new networks and otherwise unreachable professional contacts through the one-on-one call feature on the app. Scroll through the list of available professionals and join them for a quick call to build rich connections, expand invaluable relationships, and to broaden your professional landscape without needing lofty referrals. OWL. We bring vetted pros to your doorstep 24/7 on demand. Join our community by signing up at owl.com today.
No, I didn't. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Shrimp Tank. As a reminder, be sure to follow us on all of our accounts at Shrimp Tank Boca. And of course, give Dr. Krista a call on OWL. She will be the featured expert next week. We are the only podcast that I'm aware of that you get to chat with our guests one-on-one through the app. Just make sure you follow them so you get that notification, because most of our guests only go available for about 30 minutes to an hour, and it's first come, first serve. So, Dr. Krista, on this segment of the show, it's called Hot or Not. I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to tell us hot or not. Okay, all this, hormone therapy. We've had a lot of guests. You think it's hot or not?
I think it's hot in this area.
Nice.
Can you explain why it's not hot in other areas? Then? Go into more detail.
I think this area is very focused on looking good, feeling good. They have potentially the wealth to be able to really work on longevity and anti-aging, things like that, which is not available in all areas, right? So hormone replacement therapy, especially if it's bioidentical or something like a micronized progesterone, really great, still healthy for you. It's still natural. Where we get into trouble is the more synthetic hormones. Something like a birth control, for example, is really going to mess with your body. So there's different opinions on hormone replacement. But yes, in this area, very hot.
Yeah. We've had numerous guests on the show.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
They, of course, absolutely love it.
I'm glad you said that. That's what I'm trying to get on. A lot of tea. Get some extra tea so I can get real jacked in the gym. Even if I'm not healthy, I look cool, I figure.
Get some tea or just, eat some grass-fed beef and chop some wood. You'll get your testosterone.
Nice. All right. So I like to do a different segment because I'm not doing hot or not anymore. And it's what is hot. So I'm going to ask you, what's the hottest thing in healthcare right now? I guess there's one kind of obvious answer, but it involves prescription. So from your perspective, what's hot?
I would say outside of conventional medicine, right? What's getting more hot is biohacking, I would say, right? Really trying to figure out how you can hack your own body to get the result you're looking for.
Interesting. Yeah, I know there's a bunch of or several conferences in the space.
Exactly.
Okay, let me ask you, in the supplements world, now those of us who are kind of familiar with that know that there's a lot of supplement stores around down here and a lot of stuff on their shelves don't do anything at all.
Yeah.
But what is hot in the supplement space?
Supplements are tricky, right? Because they're not regulated by the FDA, but even if they were, that might be not good or bad. There's pros and cons to that. But point being, if you buy something from Amazon or Walmart or sometimes even GNC, if they test it, it'll have 0% of what it says is in it, right? And I'm not certain on all of those companies, but you can certainly look up the research and find it. So point being, what's really important with supplements is you got to get professional grade supplements. I'm not talking about going to a doctor who makes their own supplements. I'm talking about a company that really is quality testing their products. You know exactly what's in them. You can see heavy metal levels. You can see mold levels, right? You know the nutrient values, because you don't want to just buy expensive pee, right? If you're just taking something that has no nutritional value and you're just peeing it out, essentially that's money wasted.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see a lot of examples of that when they do random tests and then they publish them. Related to that, what do you think? There's a resource I use. I'd love your opinion on it. The folks at examine.com. What do you think of that as a resource? I tend to think it's pretty decent.
I think it's pretty decent as well. I wouldn't say they have everything. Like, for example, last week, I think I had a patient who was pregnant and she was trying to figure out if she could take an herb on there, and they didn't have any information about, if you were pregnant or not. But otherwise, they have a lot of good stuff. So I think it's a good one to keep using.
Yeah, so they publish, and really not publish so much. I mean, I guess they publish on the web, but for those who are unfamiliar, a ton of medical empirical studies, and most importantly, meta-analytic results, right? Because any one study, I do studies myself, they're, silly because I only do social science, not real science, but these are real science, and there's a ton of variation depending on who's in the trial, what their levels are, what the things are. But those meta-analytic findings, those can be, you can bet pretty well on those results, right? Because they're taking a whole bunch of results from a bunch of disparate studies with a bunch of different samples, and then summarizing the overall overarching effects. And you'd be surprised to see how many different supplements in a lab testing experience, so they know they're in there, don't really do all that much. And then on the other hand, there's certainly some, more than a handful, that have a significant and consistent impact.
Right. I think it's kind of twofold in that I often tell patients there's no supplement I can give you that's going to fix you, right? If you're not working on your stress, if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating well, like this really isn't going to make a difference, right? It has to be kind of a multifold approach, tackling all those variables we talked about earlier. But the other thing historically about research in the medical field is that it generally is all done on men, right? So there's not a lot of women, there's not a lot of stuff done on pregnant women, of course. So that's starting to change now. They're starting to do more research on women, and it's actually quite interesting because often supplements, prescriptions, exercise habits are a lot different what women should be doing versus men. So up and coming.
All right, so you mentioned biohacking. I can probably guess what your answer might be, but I know some people who are very much the population that you described that want to stay looking, at least, and maybe feeling young, but mostly looking. What do you think about taking metformin for anti-aging if you're in like really good health and probably don't necessarily, a traditional doctor would not suggest you need it or prescribe it, but you can find one down here that will.
Yeah, the idea there is to lengthen telomeres, right, which is to help with the aging piece. You know, all drugs have side effects, right? So that's one of the helpful things, but you're also getting the effects of the drug. So if you're already healthy and you're taking something to lower your blood sugar, that's really going to be problematic down the line, right? So I caution people with putting anything in your body that is foreign, right? That shouldn't necessarily be there. I love biohacking or working on lifestyle because you can do all these things in a more natural way, but the con to it is it just takes more time, more effort, which a lot of people aren't willing to do. They'd rather just take that quick fix pill. So
Yeah, and those side effects are important to keep in mind. That's why I haven't sent the testosterone levels through the roof, because one of the side effects is potentially hair loss, and I gotta keep as much of that as I can. So
yeah.
It is kind of interesting though when you look at all the professional athletes, right, that are supposed to be in the best shape, doing everything, the right vitamins, they actually have very short life expectancies, right? And you look at the life insurance companies. I'm a financial advisor, so I've sold a lot of life insurance.
Okay.
So I know the insurance guidelines, and it's actually quite interesting. Everyone that focused so much on like doing all these million things end up, it's not working sometimes, right? It actually backfires. And I just bring it right back to professional athletes because they should be living longer than anybody, right? Their main focus is health and staying fit. So what's your response to like why are professional athletes not living longer, right, than the average person?
If your body always felt like it was running from a tiger,
Yeah.
do you think your body would be stressed? Probably, right? So the idea is, there's other things at work, like your adrenal glands. Yes, you can work on them to get them more fit and all of that, but ultimately, really intense exercise can be really stressful on the body, can be really stressful on the hormones, all of those things. And who knows if they're getting enough sleep, if they're, eating right things. Some of these elite athletes are doing low dose pharmaceuticals that we don't need to bring up, but point being, like, not all the things they're doing are super healthy because their one aim is to win the race or to do whatever, and they'll do whatever it takes to get there, which might actually push their body too far and lead to shorter.
It's not balanced.
Yeah.
So they're being extreme in certain situations.
well, when you said that they're like the most healthy because their focus is health, like I think you made a good point there at the end that like their focus is not health. Their focus is performance
Right.
at all costs, which is not the same target place. It's a very different kind of target place to optimize performance in a set period for a set task. And sometimes it may involve doing things that are highly stressful or, generally speaking, not the healthiest. But if your goal is performance, you got to go for it.
But even in the gym space, you see a lot of people that are like so fit. They're teaching people how to do things, and then their life expectancy is shorter. It's just like interesting, when it comes to like when I look at like my base of clients who are just more balance is I guess where I'm going. And like there's pure data on that. Like and then they're pushing themselves in the gym too much. They're pushing to the extremes on certain levels, but obviously it's insufficiencies, based on the data is, I guess, where I'm going with this.
Yeah, there's extremes in anything, right? Which more is not always better is ultimately where it goes. But, there's different studies coming out now in terms of research. It's not necessarily better to work out at the gym for 3 hours, right? Your VO2 max can actually be better if you just do little short bursts of intensity, and that'll change on your age too, how much you should be doing and all of that. But more and more stuff is coming out, which is exciting. It's always fun to be learning new things.
Okay, so we'll do some rapid fire. I have a bunch of things I want to go hot or not with. Okay.
Okay.
So right off the bat, like 75-day heart challenge, hot or not? Because it's the biggest challenge people do to kind of whip themselves into the shape. I did it last summer.
I would say hot in that you're doing something. You're
Yeah.
being proactive, right? I'd much rather that than doing nothing at all.
Juice cleanse, hot or not?
Not for me. Not for me. And that's just because juice is essentially stripping away all of the fiber from the plant, and you're really just getting the sugars and some of the nutrients, but it really messes with your blood sugar levels. So over time, that can not be super great for your body.
Cold plunge. I mean, if I get another ad about a cold plunge, like, please leave me alone, right? Like,
Cold plunge is hot, right?
Okay, so you think it's
yeah, it's hot. Can help with testosterone, right? But it also depends.
That's why, Kevin. Look, that's why you bought one, Kevin. You're laughing.
This is getting fun because I'm keeping score over here. And
Okay.
so far, I'm winning because I told him that juice cleanse was nonsense. And
Yeah.
I do 5 days a week get into a 38-degree cold plunge after I get out of the infrared sauna with a little bicycle.
Ooh, that was going to be my next
Awesome.
sauna, hot or not?
Hot. Yeah. Infrared is definitely better than just regular. So good job on that one,
My
Kevin.
final one goes right back to Starbucks. Almond milk, oat milk.
The
You know,
answer's
which one?
no milk.
No milk. But if you're going to do milk, which one is hot? Because there's been so much. You go back to like the 70s, that got milk campaign and it took off, and we all were brainwashed to say milk is great for you. It's actually
Right.
you should
Milk
have it.
does the body good, right?
Yeah, and it was an amazing marketing campaign. And now I feel like I've been brainwashed. Everyone's like, get away from whole milk. And then I went to almond. Then all of a sudden I got introduced to oat. And now I'm on oat. And now I'm like, I can't win. Like, I thought I was doing a good job over here. And now I got to listen to Kevin say, haha, nope. Right. So what is it?
Yeah, there's a lot of nuances there. Really, it depends on who you are as a person and what your physiology is, right? Milk does not do everybody good. Obviously, there are some people who are lactose intolerant or people who are just sensitive to dairy in general. So that's not going to be great for them. In terms of the alternative dairy options, oat is not my favorite just because it is sugar, right? It's just a grain. You're taking the sugars from it. So it has a lot higher carbohydrate content than some of the other ones. But overall, that industry has blown up, and a lot of them are not healthy because of all of the additive fillers, caking agents, etc. in there. So you're much better off to make it yourself. That's a great thing to do. But also you want to aim for ones that really have like 5 ingredients or less. So look at that when you're in the grocery stores. There's different brands that do that, but super important to avoid those fillers.
Do you know a company called Good Milk? It's spelled MYLK.
Yes.
Yeah, so they make a powder, and based on the research, they were a client of ours and some other work I do. Based on all the stuff I read about them, that seems to be a pretty good option. And their value proposition was like, it's going to be the non-dairy, non-traditional, but not like with all the preservatives and nonsense. But of course, you do have to make it yourself from powder.
Powder's just gross, though. Once you go into that world, it's like,
it's pretty good with coffee.
If someone did the powder first and then poured it in, then I feel like it would open up.
So
the market.
they tested and developed it specifically to for coffee, right? So they just they landed a big contract with Blue. It's out west. Blue Bottle. Is that
Okay.
Yeah, because people tend to like it in their coffee. So you might give it a try, the old Good Milk.
Yeah. There's definitely good options out there that you can get right across the street at Whole Foods. There's some options, but not everything they have is great. So definitely read the labels is the main thing.
Okay. We're going to take a quick commercial break to hear from one of our sponsors. When we get back, we're going to jump to our Plead the Fifth segment of the show.
Step into our state-of-the-art innovation lab and create your digital future. Oz uses cutting-edge technology and 22 years of industry knowledge to enhance customer experience through digital innovation in a variety of expertise. Oz is a leading global consulting company whose services and solutions are trusted by startup, midsize, and even Fortune 500 companies. Get to know more about Oz's Salus, a mobile solution bringing us back to max capacity, and their latest solution, Rainmaker, saving insurance companies years of work. To learn more about Oz and their exciting technologies, visit followoz.com. That's FOLLOWOZ.com.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank. As a reminder, call Dr. Krista on the Owl app and talk to her about what we were just speaking about on the show. It is so informative, and I know everyone listening would, of course, want to pick her brain about some of this stuff in more detail, especially for their situation. So, Dr. Krista, on this segment of the show, it's called Plead the Fifth. We're going to ask you a question you don't want to answer. Just say, I plead the fifth. But you're not allowed to plead the fifth 2 times.
Okay.
So be careful.
How many questions
If you
have?
plead the fifth 2 times, then you're going to have to give a free 4-month trial package to Dr. Cox over here. Okay.
Sounds
And if you
good.
plead the fifth 3 times, then you got to give the 6-month package to Stephanie.
So there's more than 3 questions. I've got
4
that.
times, you give all 3 of us. Okay. Because we all like this stuff. Okay. I'm going to let Kevin kick off this segment, of course.
Okay.
What's the most interesting and unique or odd experience you've had with a client?
Interesting or odd experience with a client.
Start off easy. There had to be someone that was kind of crazy.
Yeah. Holistic medicine tends to attract folks of that genre, I would say. So I guess, the people who are a little bit interesting to work with are the people who are very, very intuitive or spiritual about their bodies and what should be in them. So they have a lot of rejection of any kind of science, right? Which I like to have a balance in both ways, but it's really kind of difficult to work with people who don't want to learn that way. They only want to be in the touchy-feely woo-woo world. So that's something we work with pretty often, I would say.
Okay, fair enough.
What's the hardest thing working with your husband? Right. Obviously, it can get difficult times. You're in your business focus, and then all of a sudden it gets personal quickly. And some people it works for, and we see on the show sometimes it doesn't work. It is hard, especially when children are in the picture, of course.
Yeah. I would definitely say the hardest thing, and I'm sure other people have brought this up, is really having a separation between work and home life, right? We really struggle with that balance. And I feel like oftentimes our decision-making in business can be affected by what's going on in personal life as well.
Do you guys have an off button? I think this is coming up a lot, where it used to be like you work Monday through Friday, then it's family time on the weekends. But when you're starting a brand, that's practically impossible, because you get a message on Instagram, you get a message on LinkedIn on a Saturday, and you want to respond to someone, you want to call them back because it's a business opportunity and you're new, and it's like, it's not like when you're 30 years in the business and your recurring revenue is through the roof. You have a whole support staff. It runs 24/7, but in these early days, sometimes it's hard to have an off button. Do you guys have an off button?
We work 7 days a week. I would say we maybe have an afternoon off on Sundays, sometimes. So no, I would say our off button is not great. However, we do have a 9-month-old now, and I would say he has helped with that because you have to just be present with him.
Nice. All right. So, what is the long-term goal for Live Wellness? Right? Is this something you want to scale way up and sell? Is this more of a lifestyle business? Do you need to do an IPO? Where's it going?
Yeah, some of that is to be determined, but we definitely want to grow. We already have expanded from New Jersey to Florida. We still see a lot of people in New Jersey and now in Florida and some people in other states as well. But it's really a mom and pop shop at the moment, which is great in terms of really personalized attention for folks. But ultimately, we want to be able to hire other doctors, other health coaches, all of that. sure, potentially have other locations, but really what we want to expand more is also the preventative side of things. We're really trying to work with other companies who are doing kind of preventative screenings and tests like CTs and MRIs and things like that people can go in, and also more on the genetic side, right? People are really into their genetics and figuring out, what really is the best kind of exercise for me based on my genes. So we're really starting to incorporate that into our programs as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We had life imaging
Yeah, with
on the
Tom.
show
Yes.
not too
Yeah.
long ago, and there's some really great stories about some people that, I mean, effectively probably saved their lives.
Exactly.
It sounds like maybe that's an exaggeration, but not in some cases, depending on what they find. And sure, they're rare, but some of that stuff's really kind of incredible that we otherwise don't do those screenings just because as a part of healthcare. And then genetics too. Obviously that's going to continue to evolve and change, and supposedly everybody's going to get personalized medicine. We'll see how that plays out, but I think it'll be a little while. We do have some really interesting evolutions in this space though. I work
For
with
sure.
some of the med tech companies, and it's really just an incredible pace at which we're progressing thanks to AI and algorithms and machine learning, and it's very exciting.
It is. I agree.
The fifth pillar you mentioned was mentoring.
Yes.
But what do you do when you have so many people in the United States that just can't afford your services, right? And they're the ones that need it the most, right? They're the ones that go to McDonald's the most because it's $5 to get a few items, and it's a lot less expensive than going to a lot of these other places. There's been major inflation, and one of the pillars you didn't mention was finances, right? Financial situations are very stressful, right?
Yes,
So,
stress is part of the pillars though, so that plays in.
and then it ties right back to money. So like, how do you handle, because you want to make such a big impact
Right.
with that group, right? The ones that just can't possibly afford your services. What do you see in the future?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most difficult things about having a business, that you obviously are trying to create a profit, right? I think naturopaths in general tend to be real givers. They tend to just want to work for free for everything, but ultimately that's not sustainable for the naturopath or their family or any of those things. So you've got to find a balance. I think for us, one of the big things is we really look for people who are very committed to their health. Like, it's their top priority. They're going to do whatever it takes to change. And sometimes we do get those folks who, they're spending their money on McDonald's and whatever, but they decide, you know what, I'm going to put my money towards my health, whatever that amount of money is, which is why we have the financing options. But we also have some lower programs we're rolling out actually this year as of January, just things even $50 a month to get people started really learning these pillars, working with them once a month or so they at least can get started. So we try to have a balance.
All right. Now you tell us what's wrong with people, because we got to ask some harder questions. So
Okay.
you're US based, you have US clients. During the break, you were mentioning that there's a lot of screening.
Yes.
So like I said, what's wrong with all these people? What's the number one reason people get screened out and they're not a fit for you?
Number one reason is they don't want to put in the work, right? They don't want to put in effort. They don't want to commit to themselves. They want someone to fix them, right? That's not something I can do. I wish I had magic pixie dust. I would probably be very successful, but I don't, right? So we're really looking for people who are willing, they're ready. Now's the time. They're going to put in the effort. They don't feel like they just need someone to give them an IV therapy treatment and they'll be fine, right? They're ready to dive deep, spiritually, emotionally, physically as well. Like, all of those things have to be involved. So a lot of our screening has to do with, are you committed to your health and you'll do whatever it takes? Are you committed, but you just need some accountability? Is health not a priority, but you'll change if you have to? Or is health not a priority and you just don't want to change at all, right? Those are the kind of questions we really have to dive deep with people to figure out, are they at a place that they can do this? Because it is like going to school.
How do you screen them though? You're a new business. Like, how do you have that many applicants? Like, like every business most of the time fails because they don't have enough people filling out forms. So
Right.
all of a sudden, like, you're like, okay, well, let's just take them anyway. Like, I know they're on the edge, but like, how do you actually do the screening process?
So first of all, I will tell you that we only take 10 new clients a month. And that's because we want to make sure we have ample time to really spend with people. So this is why when we are able to hire more doctors, et cetera, that can scale up a bit. But for our time now, that's what we can do. So we have different funnels that bring people in, but our main one right now is really giving educational talks. Okay, so we'll go out in the community, we'll host a live talk, we'll tell them about the pillars, but we'll also talk about insurance. We'll talk about the pitfalls of the medical system in general, things like this, and we see if it resonates with them. Then at that point, they can decide if they want to book an initial evaluation with us. And that's really where the interview takes place. So it's not really at that point giving them all the answers they're going to need to fix themselves, but it's really, are we a good fit for you? Are you a good fit for us? And so we're making that decision then and there. So we're not just taking anyone. We often turn people away.
All right. So you mentioned a lot of the issues with the traditional healthcare system.
Yeah.
What is the worst attribute of the traditional healthcare system from your perspective?
It's a business, right? Which, good and bad things about that. But because it's a business, it's all about money making. So if you go to your doctor, the average is you get 7 minutes with them, right? Hardly any time. They're just paid by how many people they can see, not based on health outcomes, right? So that ultimately leads to a lot of issues because people aren't getting great education. They're not getting answers. All they're getting is a pill to try to fix their issues. And then the pharmaceutical companies are benefiting that way. A lot of the education that is going on in conventional medical schools is from pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies also control our lab ranges, what falls as a normal range. So that side of the business is really affecting people's health.
Yep.
I don't think you're going to get her to plead the fifth. You're not going to get your free trial, Kevin.
That's
if you
all
want
right.
it, I'll get her to say plead the fifth. You just let me know if
I
I should
forgot we were doing that,
let
honestly.
me know if I should go below the belt.
No,
up to you.
No.
No?
I think we've had a great show today. Very interesting. Live wellness.
Yes.
Live wellness. Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us, Dr. Krista, on the show today. For our audience listening, if they want to get in touch with you, what's your Instagram handle? What's your website?
So our website is livewellness.health. So not .com, but .health. And our Instagram and Facebook are live.wellness.health.
Awesome. Everyone tuning in, we'll be back next week, shifting the show to 1 o'clock start time. See you guys soon.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. When it take a swim, only option is to win. In the murky water, not a thought of giving in.